Good evening, everybody. I hope you are enjoying the show, the language show today, and welcome to the last one. And hello again, hello again, Elena. Good evening, and today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about teaching the textbook. So I'm very annoyed because you got Helen and Joe on the other side during their session. Hi, good evening from Germany. Wow, fantastic. Welcome, welcome. And lots of Cyprus, brilliant, excellent. Suffolk, Italy, London. Oh, that's great. Lots of people. I feel like very famous right now. Oh my God, El Salvador, brilliant. Exeter, Manchester, brilliant. Lots of people. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I feel really bad, as I said, because I've got Helen and Joe on the other side doing their bits, and they are absolutely amazing. So I am a little bit jealous, but we're going to do this together. And here today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about teaching the textbook. So if you are an English person and you teach languages in England, you will probably understand my pain. So my name is Juliette Claro. I'm a language teacher by trade. I'm an assistant head teacher in a school in West London. But more than anything, I am a language teacher, and teaching and learning is my passion. So I work very closely with Learn a Voice, and this is why this session is going to help you, because we built this program from Learn a Voice, asking the student directly what they wanted. So I'm also a scuba diver, so I don't know if people from El Salvador, people from Ecuador, and they're probably excited to know I am a diver and I love scuba diving. And more than anything, I love cave diving, especially in the cenote in Mexico. But as you can see on this picture, there is a diver in the cave and he has a reel. And if you don't follow the reel, if you're diving on the cave, inside the cave, you will get stuck. And the reel is almost like your lifeline. Is going to help you to survive through it. So hello from North London, Poland. Oh God, bonjour de France and Darlington, brilliant. So coming back to my story of the diver, if you have your reel with you, it helps you to find your way into the cave. If you get tangled into this reel, generally what's happening is you die. And it's very similar to textbooks, the analogy of the textbook and the cave diver. If you are a language teacher and you've been teaching a few years, you will know this textbook, right? I actually trained with Avantage, this one that was 20 years ago, and probably some schools around the world are still using the black and white tricolor somewhere. And don't get me wrong, these books are fantastic. They are like a lifeline, like the reel inside a cave. Hi, hello everybody. From Mexico, so you've probably been to the cenote, brilliant. You've never been, oh, you have to go and visit them, they are amazing. But these textbooks basically help us to plan our curriculum, plan where we're going. And they're a little bit like a lifeline, but sometimes they are a little bit dry. And you have to say, sometimes you get through a page and you go, why am I teaching this? Why is this to do with what I taught last week? Sometimes it jumps, the tenses are jumping, the prepositions are jumping. And then you go and have to find Bobo, the dog, and he's behind the bathtub, and you know, it's very boring and it's very dry. So these textbooks serve a purpose. And don't get me wrong, I think we need to keep them. If you teach in France, for example, I am a generation of traumatized people. I learned English with apple pie and hello, and I learned German with wie geht's. And what we liked about these books when we were back in the 90s is they had a storyline. And there were characters in those storylines. And we wanted to find out whether Uli was going to go out with Petra. That was my German book, by the way. And probably our people from France will know that textbook. But they had a purpose. They served the storyline, and they served to actually get us to get where we were going. The problem is they get a little bit dry. So a couple of years ago, we did a bit of Learn a Voice with our students. So to give you a bit of context of my school in West London, we teach 4 languages. We teach French, Italian, Chinese, and Spanish, and Latin. Our weekly workout, language gym, day 7s, our first year in high school, they have 2 sessions of 50 minutes. We have year 8 have single linguists and double linguists. So if you're a double linguist, you have 1 hour of your first language and 2 hours of your second language. And if you're a single linguist, you have 3 sessions of 50 minutes of your language. You choose your GCSE options in my school in year 8. We are one of the schools that are going for 3-year GCSE. If you are from abroad, GCSE is like our end of secondary school, high school exam. And we have 3 sessions. Then we go into A-level, which are 6 sessions. We also teach pre-U for Chinese, which people may be familiar with the concept of pre-U, but it's an alternative to A-level, and it's far more geared towards the cultural aspect. So the exam on literature, for example, is written in English because it's more to do with the culture as opposed to the language. But it's actually a very good qualification too. Okay, so in 2016, what we did in my school is we did a bit of learner voice. And this is my area of speciality because I did my MPQSL on this project. It was like a bit like an MA. And I did a research on learner voice. And our students across the school basically were saying they were doing death by textbook in all subjects, not just languages, but history. They had worksheets in textbook, death by PowerPoint, lots of textbooks here, there, and everywhere. And basically, they were a little bit bored, the students. So we asked them, you know, which session, what we had in our sessions, we were basically asking them why is the textbooks no good? And the students said, actually, we do like a textbook at home because it's very useful when we have work to do, but what's in the classroom is very boring. So we thought, okay, that's interesting. And the parents like a textbook too. So if we ditch the textbook completely, some parents might be against you and say, hey, we need a textbook because we need it for grammar. So we kind of trying to find a way in the middle, trying to find the safety net of having the textbook and try to reel them out. So this is the timeline, and this is where we were back then in 2016. So before 2016, we used to use good old Expo and Mira. And in our department, when I was head of department, we used to use them, and our scheme of work was based on this. Then the new specification came along, and it was far more rigorous. The new exam came along, and it had literary text, literature and GCSEs, we had translation, and it was basically not fit for purpose anymore. So I had a chat with the girls, with the students, and with our departments, and we said, what we're going to do? If we were going to buy a new textbook, it was going to cost £9,000, which we didn't have at the time. The students moaned about textbook. They found them very dull and boring, but they needed to have them for the safety net of having something to work from. And then we kind of thought, okay, what's out there? And you know, it's very boring. Out there in 2016, you had Mira, you had Expo, you had Claro, who just came out. So kind of we thought, hey, should we get for Ali and Zoom? Good old Ali and Zoom, yeah. Great, but the problem is it doesn't work for Chinese and it doesn't work for Italian. If you're an Italian teacher or you're a Chinese teacher, an Arabic teacher, or you teach Polish even, you will know that you don't have a textbook or you have very limited resources out there. So we were inspired by the Chinese and the Italians because they had to constantly find their resources, create their resources, and blend a bit of authentic resources with the textbook. So that's what we did. We just decided we're going to go for Ali, we're going to have a bit of Zoom, but we are going to go for the digital textbook. We're not going to have textbook, and we're going to create our own scheme of work completely. So where we are now in 2020, we are very thankful that we got the digital textbook, because in lockdown, we actually had access to MP3 and for the videos that students can access from home. But our students are now completely resilient. They don't need to have the textbook anymore, and we can teach completely without it. So this is where we are now. And how does that work? Well, it's all in the planning. So what we need to do is to think exactly where you want your student to be right at the end and what skills you want them to have. And you plan your schemes of work backwards. So if you teach up to 18 years old, to the A level, you teach to 16 for GCSE, you work your way back down. You look at the skills and you plan and you incorporate your topics based on the skills you want the students to have. So we're talking literary text, we're talking authentic resources, real people talking, not something that's pre-recorded for a textbook. And we're talking fun, because the students want to learn how to swear, how to use slang language, and to actually be a proper linguist. So what we did is we built our ICANN sheet, which is our PLC in our department, based on what we want them to have. And we kind of had a textbook, and we still have a textbook, more like a safety net approach. And we use it to dip in and out where we need to have the listening perhaps, or maybe we need to have a bit of support for the weaker students who really need to have a textbook. So all our lessons now have authentic materials, and we don't really rely on the textbook. In fact, we never use it. We hardly ever use it, apart from when we are in a listening activity, and we need the students to have a textbook next to them. In year 7 and 8, we have a language festival in July in our school where students perform in foreign language. We went all virtual, and all of this was done without a textbook. So the textbook is only for MP3 access only, for just support for differentiation and a string of like a reel to navigate through your curriculum. So this is what a PLC looks like in our school. We built our scheme of work and we built our ICANN sheets based on what we wanted the student to achieve. So this is the first half term, that was September until October half term. What we want our students to do is phonics, learn pronunciation, the combinations of letters. We want students to be able to introduce themselves, greet themselves, understand the difference between formal and informal speech. And we want them to count. We want them to start to be familiar with understanding a poem. Why not? It's the first time they're going to do it. And we want them to be able to understand cultural things. So all of this, yes, you could say it's taken a little bit from Zoom, but we've taken bits in and bits out, and we kind of made a hybrid of a curriculum. So what our students do, they green, the aspects of the first half term. You have basically six ICANN sheet for the 6 half term for the year, and it's all at the front of their book, and they're basically green, amber, or red it. If something is red, I reteach it. I'm going to reteach what they didn't understand, and then they turn it into green. So that's why on this one, it looks a bit messy because she was red, for example, with llamarse, tener, and ser, but when we retaught it, she turned the red into a green. So you can create this very easily on Word. If you want to have this as a Word document, I can, just email me. My email is at the beginning of the slide. I can send you a template and you can easily adapt it for your subject. It's absolutely no problem. So authentic resources in our department is basically at least one authentic resource every week. So students are exposed to something real, not just a textbook activity. We created a drive where everything is in the drive. So anybody who shares something can actually dip in and out. So even if we have a trainee teacher who's training to be a PGC, she's allowed or he's allowed to go in and find some resources and make it better, improve it. So we're very open on how we work. It's not for me to do everything all the time because I know my colleagues are going to share the load with me as well and find things, especially if you teach several languages. Obviously I'm French, so my second language is Spanish. I'd love to go and dip in and out, but my colleagues Maria and Jyoti, they know where to find resources. My colleague Concha, who's an expert in literature, she will find poems here, there, and everywhere to support any reasons or any season of the year, because that's her language. So really share the resources with your native speakers in your department. So this is an example. This is how we use it with year 8. Actually, that was a year 8 lesson. They learned food, basically. We were learning the topic of food, and in our GCSE paper, if you're from abroad, one of our speaking skills is to describe a picture and talk about what's on the picture, what they're doing, and after that, they have a discussion. So this was a way to engage our students with the idea of food, but also the idea of art. So linking cross-curricular with the art department. So they had to do this in lockdown. So that was a lesson that was set on Google Classroom in April. So we were doing food. So they had to describe the painting and they had to decide which painting they preferred and why. Now on the other side of the slide, there is a sentence builder. So I don't know if today you have done the other workshops, but sentence builders are fantastic. They are brilliant. But Scotland, we don't have GCSE. I would be really interested to see the GCSE in Scotland, the equivalent, and how it works for languages. Please do tell me. So for the art department, we actually asked them, what do you teach in year 8? And they were doing Impressionism. So we kind of touched base with them and thought, oh, that's a great idea. How can we link Impressionism with what we're teaching? So we kind of linked a little bit of the artists, of the Impressionism and the Fauvism, and we kind of make them describe the picture with the sentence builders. So if you're not familiar with sentence builders, please do check the website for Gianfranco Conti, the language gym, and you can actually use all of their resources to create your language builders. It helps the student to build their own sentences using more complex vocabulary. So that's one way of doing it. And then at the end of this, there was an extension task where students had to do research on an impressionist and present it. So they had a choice to do it in English or to do it in a target language, depending on the level of ability. So you can, do the chili task, hot chilies if you want to really stretch yourself, and a mild version if you want to do it in English. But the idea is, of course, is to make them to research the language and the culture at the same time. This activity I did before half term. So we were doing Black History Month, and we were we completely rewrote our curriculum completely. We decolonized completely our curriculum in our school. So this topic is about the first topic about la culture française, les pays francophones. So they watched a little clip about what was the commerce triangulaire. We went through the vocabulary, we drilled the vocabulary, and then they basically watched a video that we would show to primary school in France. And what they had to do was to work out what part of the trade was actually being traded through the slave trade in France. And then we had a bit of a debate, again, using the sentence builders to help us with the backup. They had to do a little debate for the people who were arguing for the slave trade and against the slave trade, and then we swapped over. So that was year 9, actually. That was year 9, and it started GCSE in year 9. So if you want the textbook, actually, technically, it would be Aller deux. But this is, like I said, the real, okay? This is the navigation. We're using the first topic of Aller deux because it's about la culture francophone, c'est quoi la France? But we don't really want to use the textbook all the time because it's really, really boring. So we kind of went for Black history. We went to look for which country was speaking French and why they spoke French. And we talk about Louisiana. We talked about the old part of America that was sold by Napoleon. We did the past tense with il a fait, il a inventé, and we did a lot of different things with the famous French people. Do I take to the frequency of the language that you teach? Yes, that was at the beginning. So when you have them 3 lessons a week, it's much easier. If you do 1 lesson a week, what we would do a bit of flip learning. So on our VLE or the Google Classroom or Microsoft Classroom, we would set them a task to do at home. And then when they come in the classroom, we really practice with them, make them speak as much as possible. How to find authentic resources. If you are a native speaker, you would know FLE for French, Français langue étrangère, so you can Google anything. If you want, I don't know, slave trade FLE, le commerce triangulaire FLE, if you want grammaire présent FLE, you'll have lots of resources for teachers who teach French as a foreign language around the world. Same for Spanish with the Elle, or Celli, if you're doing Italian. The Goethe Institute for German has loads of resources too. So there are lots of websites. You just need to know where to look for the stuff. So FLE is like this, Elle for Spanish, Celli for Italian. That's the main 3. And the Goethe Institute, of course, if you teach German, they will have loads and loads and loads of resources for the specialists. Now, we ask our students what they loved. And if you remember, if you're a French person and you have learned English in France, you know about apple pie and you know about the story, about the characters. And the thing is, the kids love it. They love to have a storyline. And if you know the Extra, which is a sitcom on YouTube, they absolutely love it. So this is like Friends. If you don't know Extra, it's in French, it's in Spanish, and it's in German. It's been translated in 3 languages. And it's a bit like Friends, but it's in target language. So there are about 12 episodes in the series. And there's always a story. So they've lost the cat, and they have a new job, and you basically parallel teach your topic with the Extra sitcom episodes. The kids absolutely love it because, yes, it's done on purpose, but it's like they're watching a sitcom in French or in German. And for them, it's a really big achievement that they can actually do that. So just have a look. If you have a look at the YouTube channel for Extra in your language, you will actually have lots and lots of ideas here. Songs, of course, lots and lots of songs. My problem with songs is quite often when I observe lessons with teachers who use songs around schools, and I'm very privileged, I can go in lots of schools and help other departments to build their resources and the curriculum. I find sometimes frustrating how we use songs in the classroom. We don't use it to their full potential, and there's so much we can do with songs, and the kids really, really love it. We have often songs used for purpose. So we have like gap fill activity, this is other verb, go and fill in the gap, or sometimes have what's the ending of the verb, or let's put the things in the right order. That's fantastic. And the kids really love it. So you can use the song for grammar, for lexical, syntax, or catchy or fun, song or phonics. But you need to think about, what do I want to do with it? Can I use phonics? Can I actually make them pronounce the chorus and practice the phonics with it? Can I make them create their own little chorus? Can I create their own little stanza for the song? So you can really explore a little bit more with a song. In fact, your song could become an entire week. You can start showing them the clip without the words, the video clip without the words. Or you could, yes, I do use Shakira La Bicicleta, fantastic, really good choice of song actually. You could show them the clip, try to work them out what is the song about, and using the sentence builder to say il s'agit de, and what they can see on the video. So once they've seen the video in silence without the song, you can start building the song, what it's about. Then you show them the transcript with the lyrics, and you can do the first activities that you want to. Then you can start to build in what is the song talking about, what are the feelings, what are the emotions, what are the opinions, and build a sentence builder back into the practice. And in fact, one song can take you to teach lots of different grammar points, opinions, fluency, phonics. There's lots of things that you can do. So maybe take a picture of this slide, because you have lots of resources here where to find songs. Lepointduflot.net has lots of things, and of course TV5 Monde. If you go on TV5 Monde, you have the song with all the activities that goes with it as well. So you have the activities from teachers around the world who have already created this, and of course Spanish has lots of resources as well. Movies. Now, movies is an interesting one. I do love to use films to explore, a topic or a theme. Especially, you might think it's easier when they are older. So when they are like 14, 15, around GCSE, but then you have the problem of time. You've got to think about, yes, it is interesting, but it's a bit different and complicated. Yes, that's true. The problem we have, exactly like you said, we have a GCSE to do and we have a content, and you have very limited time to get through your content. So you think, well, actually I can do films in year 10, 11, I haven't got time to do it. And then in year 7, I'm kind of limited because they don't understand the language. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You're not quite sure what to do. So there's 3 options for you to use a movie. I'm going to go through each way, and you can decide how you want to explore your film. The first option is to explore in the classroom with the booklet. So you watch the film in the classroom with the kids. You can give them worksheets. You can give them booklets. So the characters, describe the characters. The problem with that option, we're going to see what are the problem with that options. Then you have the option of streaming online. That has its advantages, it has its disadvantages. And then option 3 is selecting passages of the film with the transcript. So the first option, the classic method, I think we've all done that as language teachers. You pick a movie that fits with your theme, and you're going to basically show the film with the students. You can maybe even introduce the poster. That's what I did with my year 10, Qu'est-ce qu'il y a sur la photo? Description des personnages, opinions and reviews, project work. Yes, you can do all of that. That's the classic method. You're going to watch the film in the classroom with them. It might take you up to 3 lessons to see the whole movie, because it takes time. Then you have a bell and they come back, they forgot half of the film. So, but we're used to it, language teachers, we're resilient, that's what we do. The good thing about this is super popular with the kids. They absolutely love to watch a film with you and their mates in the classroom on the big screen. For them, it's a treat. They really like it. Around Christmas time, it's a big thing. But for you as a teacher, it's quite time consuming. So you have to think and make choices. What is the impact? What is the learning impact? Is this a treat, or is it you really want to get something out of this film? So option 2, you can opt for the flipped learning method. This means that you need to have access to the film online. So what you're going to do here, you're going to prepare the students to it. You're going to get them to stream the film at home where possible, and students complete the work at home. And when they come back to the classroom, you debrief and you do lots of speaking, you do a project with them, and you get them to talk about the movie. So you have saved yourself some time. That's an example that I used with my year 9, just before half term, just before we did Black History. Actually, I'm using very current things that I have used with my classes. You can see it's dated the 15th of October. So year 9, we're learning about les BD, les personnages de BD francophones. So they had to, we did a bit of, the idea was to describe characters. What do they do? What do they like and dislike was the first chapter. So I made them basically watch a series of comic strips. So they had to choose Les Schtroumpfs, Astérix, or Tintin. These are all online for free. You can watch these and stream them on YouTube. You don't need to pay for them. So the kids watched them at home, and then they had a little project to do. It could be a quiz. It could be, you know, you can do lots of activities with them. We can do a poster describing the characters, describing the storyline. When they came back in the classroom, they can present. So they did a presentation about the characters in pairs. So they all chose different cartoons that they watched at home. Then they had to get together and make a presentation and present in front of the class. They are 13 years old, and they had to present in French. Il s'appelle Astérix, son ami, il s'appelle Obélix, il aime, blah, blah, blah. And they basically had a little presentation, and they had the assessment criteria where they could say, you know, we were marking phonics, pronunciation, content. Have they included a description of the characters, opinions? Have they included opinion about the film? And that's actually very useful for them to build their confidence. And the fact that they watched it at home was useful. You might ask me, well, how do you know they've done it? The reality is you don't. However, the students quite find it enjoyable. So you need to basically base your win-win situation here. They might say to you, I've watched it, and they haven't, or they work as a pair. So you can't really check that they've watched something on YouTube, but you can see from the quality of the work that they've done. So consider your disadvantaged students who can't have access to online learning. If they can't do that, you need to think about the alternatives. What I did for my students is I streamed it in the classroom at lunchtime, so then they can do the work, because I have pupil premium students who don't have access to, you know, they're basically sharing hotspots with their parents, and that's quite difficult for them to download data and stream online. So it could be something that that you can do with your students, your more disadvantaged students. The good thing about this is it developed their resilience. They become very resilient to watch something in the foreign language in their bedroom, in their laptop, or at home with their parents. It's popular homework. They really enjoy doing it. The problem is, again, as I said, you need to consider students who might not be able to stream the work online. Option 3, which is my favorite one, is when you select an extract of a movie and you explore it in the classroom with your students. The problem with that is you need to be able to know the film very well and know exactly what part of the film you want to show them. And you need to have the movie downloaded on your drive, on your area, so you can select what you want to show them. So this is an example that I use with year 10 when I teach l'éducation. And we do Entre les murs. And there's a clip where this character is from the suburbs, and he describes, in fact, if I click on the link, I'm not sure if I'll have time, but if we click on the link, you'll be able to see what he talks about. And the students basically, as they watch the clip live, they need to put what Suleiman aime, what il n'aime pas, and they have to put things in the right column. You can do this with lots of films. You can even print the transcript, and you can do a transcript with them. You can do a dictation, so they can actually listen to what the character says and write down what they hear. You can also do transcription with what is the word missing, or you can do corner notes, summarize what they've heard as well. So there's lots of really good ways that you can explore having the movie in the classroom. The aspect is popular in the class. It creates an interest for the movie, and the kids will ask you, Miss, can we watch the film? Can we watch the film? Oh, that looks really good. And then you win them, and then you can actually make them watch it on either on option 2, or you can do option 1, maybe in the classroom if you have the time. Need to know what you're finding for. That's the problem. You need to actually know your films and know exactly which passage you want. It could be time consuming, but once you've done it once or twice, then you've got your resources built up, and it's quite easy to reuse and recycle. Blended learning and consolidation. I don't know if you're familiar with teachvid.com, but I really do love this website. You need a subscription for this, but basically you log on, and as a department, you can get the full package. So there's different levels, the premium, but what it is for the free version, you get actually quite a good deal. You get videos on different topics with a transcript. The students can choose to watch it in target language or in English. And then they have activities that you can select what you want them to do. So they could be jumbled up activity. Yes, absolutely, really useful to use in lockdown. In fact, we use that for blended learning and consolidation. So that has activities for grammar. It's really good for comprehension. It's really good for phonics as well. And it's good for students to actually real people talk, because these actually, quite a lot of the topics are actually recorded by native speakers, so they actually get the speed as well, and a topic as well. Poems and fables, that's another really good one that I use a lot in my classroom. You can have one for each month of the year. There could be poems for all around the year. So you could have autumn. There's lots of poems about autumn. So again, if you're not sure where to find, just put autunno ele poesia, and then you will find lots of things on that people have already done, and you can download things. So have a look online for Elle, for Fleu, or for Celli, or Goethe Institute, and then you'll have lots of ideas of resources that have already been created. Obviously, Black History, Dia de los Muertos in October, Remembrance in November, Christmas clearly. In January, you can do lots of poems about the future tense, resolution for the future. So again, you're planning your curriculum with the day of the month. So what am I going to teach, and how can I incorporate from the month of the year and what's going on in the festivals? What am I going to teach on that particular month? And also another thing that you can do is to look at the International Day off. So at the moment we have International Day of Bullying, the Bullying Week, Anti-Bullying Week is in the UK this week and next week. So you can do a lot of reflection and poem about this. Thank you for the link as well, that's brilliant. February, love obviously Valentine's Day. March, lots of poems and fables about spring. You have Easter. May, obviously the armistice of World War II, and the 8th of May. So you can do lots of resources and poems and reflection in French about les poètes engagés. You can do Paul Éluard, André Breton. So there's lots of poems that you can use that spring to mind here. And obviously in the summer term, lots of poetry about the summer term. And you can have one every other week. You can actually have a homework of a poem or an activity in the classroom where you're going to debunk a poem. And that builds your curriculum in the classroom. And it's just far more better than actually having Ali or, your textbook that might be a little bit dusty. Exploiting literary texts. This is a project that I started with a colleague of mine in my old school, and Manon, I think you're probably here. I think you're actually watching us today, but we did this together with Le Petit Prince, and we built up basically a whole curriculum based on Le Petit Prince. And from chapter 1 all the way to the last chapter, we did lots of work on Le Petit Prince, and you can actually build an entire curriculum for an entire year based on Le Petit Prince, if you have it. There is a school in West London called the Reach Academy. If you're not familiar with the Reach Academy, they also teach their French curriculum based on literature, and they have a book as well. So I know if there are colleagues from the Reach on our talk tonight, maybe just share some ideas, because I know that you're very good at doing that. So exploiting literary text, think about what are you using the literary text for? Are you using it for grammar? Do you want them to have the culture aspect? Do you want them to do translation? Is it to do with phonics? Do you want them to listen for details? And for each topic, you could actually build an entire curriculum based on Le Petit Prince, because the good thing about Le Petit Prince is you can have if you pin me an email, I will actually share all of that with you. You could actually you read Le Petit Prince at 3 years old as a tale, but you can read it again at 40 years old and reflect on life and philosophy. So Le Petit Prince is a very good start, because you have very easy characters. Sometimes the vocabulary might be difficult, but you build it as block. You use the sentence builders and you block the vocabulary, so then they get familiar with more complex vocabulary. You can do role plays. So Le Petit Prince wants to meet the rose, he wants to chat the rose, so you can make a bonjour, je m'appelle Le Petit Prince, ça va? And they can make up dialogues, so you can create your curriculum based on all the characters of Le Petit Prince and move forward with it. So that's something that we introduced in my old school in year 7, and that was really, really useful. Yes, I can share the curriculum, all the things. If you want them, you can use that. So that was the 6 weeks basically based on Le Petit Prince. And then in the end, it was a bit too much. What we did is we did 6 sessions across the year. So we exploited 6 chapters on the first half term, second half term, third half term. So then it was actually a little bit more edulcorated. We milked it a little bit because I think perhaps having one every week was a bit too much. But then again, you're experimenting and you're trying different things, and ask your students, is it too much? Do you enjoy it? And if they like it and they feel like they can actually build their knowledge of the language and the interests, that's what matters. Ways of exploring the, I've got somebody who's raised their hands. I need to check. If you want to put a question, Anne-Marie, or is it Anne-Sophie? Je crois que c'est Anne-Sophie. If you want to put maybe a question, maybe I can answer it. If you want, I can put my email address so then everybody you can ask me any questions. I'm going to type that here. It's at the first, oops, sorry, Gumley House at gumleyhouse.com. So it's also on the first slide, and on Twitter, if you want to pin me, direct message me at Miss Claro. You can find me there as well. So how to use this is actually for year 7. We used it last week with our year 7, and they basically, as you know, very simple task: translation, match up the translation. So they have to do this, and then they had to create a poster, and then they have to use the word les coquelicots in another sentence. So they've learned how to say j'aime, je n'aime pas parce que, and they can say j'aime les coquelicots parce que c'est rouge, mais je n'aime pas les alouettes parce que c'est moche. And basically, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it's basically recycling vocabulary that they have learned the first 6 weeks. So did you see, is my email just popping up? If I type, can you see my email if I pop it? Ah, you can't see it. Right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Look, I'm going to go back to the first slide and you can see my email again. There we go. Can you see it now? There you go. It's probably easier. So there you go. Here's my email. And for my Twitter account is at Miss Claro. That's it. And you can just drop me a line. That's probably easier to do it that way. I'm not very good at this technology, believe it or not. Sometimes I'm used to Microsoft Teams, but Zoom frustrates me massively sometimes. Okay, so I was here with my poem. Just lots of links for literary text. Here we go. You can take a picture of the screen, but I'm sure all of this is shared on the website anyway. You can access it. Where to find poems and where to find stuff that is linked with different topics. So you can download them. You can also go onto the Padlet from Nino Jennifer. She's got lots of lovely ideas for Spanish, and thank you, Jennifer, wherever you are, for your lovely poetry that you share on your Padlet. Français Facile, I love because it's brilliant to set homework as well. Literary text or grammar, it's very, very useful. Okay, dual language readers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They are on Amazon for about £6.99. On audiobook on Kindle, if you are one of these amazing schools that use Kindle, you can have them on Kindle. The idea is you have one page in the target language and one page in English, and you set the students fiche de lecture where they have to learn new vocabulary. You get them to read, say, 3 or 4 pages a week. They come back in the classroom, you correct it with them, and then they use the language in the lesson with you. So when you switch from, maybe you could do, you can switch from your Petit Prince or your Zoom activities to this. So you have to dip in and out and try to plan your curriculum. So then actually, Le Rocher Rouge, which is a very good book because it's like a mystery. So if you plan Le Rocher Rouge as after Christmas, your year 7 will have enough vocabulary to see, you know, what they, to be able to understand it. They have them, by the way, in 3 languages, and you can buy them on Amazon. They have 4 or 5 different stories, the same story translated in 3 or 4 languages. So if you have dual linguists, they can actually really start to cross-link the Spanish, the French, and the German, because they are actually the same stories across the board. So we found with our double linguists, sometimes it's very useful to make them read the same story. Sentence builders. So you're going to say, well, if you don't have a textbook, how do you support your students with the vocabulary? We have moved very towards the sentence builders program. So if you are not familiar with them, please do check the Gianfranco Conti. We use them quite a lot, as well as the textbook as support, but we print them at the beginning of a unit. So the students have the vocabulary and they have the maths with all the useful vocab and the sentence builders. So when we do authentic resources, they are not completely left on their own and they don't know the vocabulary. It's really important that you have something. If you don't have the textbook, you will need something on the side. So it could be a digital notebook or book. It could be knowledge organizers as a booklet, so you hand them back to them, or it could be folders and exercise book that you can have with treasury tags. That's what we do with our students. They have that I'm trying to work out where to find the raise hands, and it's really frustrating me because if I go to the top, because I'm sharing screen, I can't see it. I hate Zoom. If you have a question, please do ask it in the, yeah, I can see Judy, you're raising your hands. I can see Camilla, you're raising your hands. I can't see. How do I get this PowerPoint? I'm going to send, it's actually going to be on the Language Show website because they're going to share all the resources, so you will be able to have this. But if you want it and you desperately want it today, if you email me on my email address, I can send that to you today, no problem. And ditch the textbook or not? That is the question. So wrapping this up, there are good ways of doing it and there are not so good ways of doing it. The good thing is if you ditch your textbook completely, your lesson will automatically be far more engaging. Your students will be far more, no, I'm not Zoom friendly at all. And it's disturbing me to this chat line because I'm losing track of my thought. I'm used to Google Meet and I'm used to Microsoft Teams, but more engaging for your students and more challenging because your students will learn to not rely on the textbook too much. You will get them to learn what you want to teach them. So you're in charge and you're not following a textbook and you're not wondering like, why am I teaching the perfect tense now when I've just taught the future tense last week? Because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And I don't know if you're like me, but if you teach expo and you have expo 3, or if you have aller 2, sometimes you're thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on? Why is all of this going, you know, what's happening at this, what's happening with this textbook? Why am I moving from one thing to another? Blend resources, you can blend what you want. You can choose what you want to teach and how you want to teach it, and you're not a slave to the textbook. And it also develop the fluency of your learners because they will learn more, colloquialism. They will learn real language, not textbook language. Something to consider is obviously planning it very carefully, because if you go straight without a textbook, the danger is you will not know exactly where you're going. So plan down, work your way downwards. What do you want your students to, skills-wise, what do you want them at the end? And how are you going to bring it down to the level you want from the first year down? So you start with A level with your year 13, look at the specification, look at the level of analysis that they need to be able to do in the literary text. And from that level of analysis that they need to be able to do, this is where you bring down your literary text, your Petit Prince in year 7, so they can look at inferring into the text and gradually build them up to the resilience you want them to have when they get older. Organize your schemes of work, and maybe you can put it all on the cloud so then your colleague can have access to it. If you're in a department that have lots of people who teach a language that is not their first language, it is scary, very scary to say, I'm going to teach Spanish without a textbook. It will be scary. So you need to nurture the teachers in your department who are not first language teachers. If you tell me tomorrow I have to teach German without a textbook, I would probably freak out. And I will need a lot of help to go and find the resources. I have learned how to do that, but it takes me time because German is not necessarily my first go-to language. What are the schemes of your school? Yes, we have them. It's going to be politically correct to share them, but yes, I can share them the example of the year 7, and then you can build up and you can see the overview. So you will be able to see where we're going. I will share the I can sheets with you. So if you want them, you can build up your curriculum from year 7 all the way to GCSE and A level. That's absolutely no problem. Mapping is that it's highly to, yes, you're right. And this is the problem. You need to think about your skills. You need to think about the students need to be able to infer that in the question on the specimen paper 2018, in the literary text, that question where Madame Blanchard m'avait invité pour me remonter le moral. And the question says, what was the state of mind of the character before the meal? I mean, the inferring was that remonter le moral means it was down, he was upset, and this is not in the text, but that's the GCSE criteria. So you need to work your way down and think, I need the students to start to build that resilience to be able to answer these questions from a very early age. So when it comes to year 11, you can throw them into the higher paper and they don't feel completely freaked out about it. So yes, you're right, you are tied by the GCSE criteria, but you can move a little bit and be flexible with it. You go with the GCSE, the way we teach 10s and 11s, I'm not going to lie to you, we do use the AQA GCSE textbook as a reel again, okay, and we use the listing that are in the caboodle because it helps the students at home to have access to MP3 files and to practice the listening skills. So when you do listening skills in year 11s and year 10s, you are kind of regularly going back in and out, dipping in and out of the GCSE criteria. But you have to keep in mind that if you need to expose them to something that's constantly difficult. So if you bring the difficulty higher, by the time they get to listen to the GCSE paper, it will be a little bit easier. So sometimes I give them the AS papers in year 11 to get them to understand a little more faster speed. So when they hear the higher paper, they think, well, actually, it's not too bad, you know. GCSE, we do AQA for A level and GCSE, yeah. So coming back to things to consider, look at your experts in your team and make them the experts in a particular field. So if you don't want to ditch the textbook completely, we haven't, okay? I'm going to be honest with you. We still have a textbook and we use it as a backup. We always use it for our weaker students. So if you have an expert in your team who are, you know, brilliant at movies or poetry, make them create a scheme of work or a part of curriculum. So actually, can you create poetry for the next 6 weeks and then or for the next terms, so we know where to find things? You're saving yourself a heaps amount of time. So go for your experts and ask them if they can find resources for different types of the different parts of the year that could actually help you to build your curriculum. Think about when you're looking for resources, can I adapt this as blended learning, which is a new normal now? And can I use this as flip learning? So a good thing about those movies, can they watch it from home? Can you stream online? So if it's on Netflix, the kids can watch it at home, but not every kid have Netflix. 95% of your kids will have Netflix. You have another 5% who doesn't. What do you do with those 5%? So it's also thinking about that and how can you adapt it so then it's blended learning friendly, if that makes sense. And think about your weaker students. They would need a textbook or they will need the booklet with the knowledge organizers or the sentence builders. If you don't have a textbook, your poor set 3 or your poor students, your SEN students will really struggle. So you do need to have some sort of safety net to help them out. And how will you assess progress? This is another thing. If you don't have a textbook, you don't have assessments, you have to create your own. Now you might say, well, I teach Chinese, I teach Italian, I teach Czech or Polish, so I make my own assessments. That's true. There's a lot of teachers out there who have to create their own assessments. If you ditch your textbooks, you can actually go back to an old textbook and find resources for the listening, for the reading, or you can find resources on YouTube as well. But it will make you time, it will take you time to build your own assessments. So sometimes having a textbook might help you to actually use the resources for the assessments. So I'm not going to say ditch it completely, have one, but use it in a clever way so that it's there as a support function for you and also for your weaker students and for your reel to know where you're going with your curriculum. Yeah, yes, absolutely. You can't lump it together as weaker students. No, you don't, but it might be that you have a lot of students who might not be able to access the knowledge organizers because everything on one page might be too much. It could be that you have students who might need a little bit more support for one topic or not another. So you have lots of accessibility problem, you have literacy problems. So sometimes having a textbook might help the students and also for the parents as well. If you're doing lots of parental engagement work, which we do in our school, you need something to support the parental engagement at home to support them. So if you ask a parent to help the students with his Spanish and the parents don't speak Spanish, the first answer would be, thank you very much, Ms. Claro, for your homework that we have to do with our child, but I don't speak Spanish, I can't help them. So yeah. I've got to, I think I've actually run over, but if you have any questions, lack of computer variable. Yes, if you have problem with computers, I mean, the government was supposed to deliver lots of computers, but we only got 19, so that was not very good. What we did at the end, we offered students the dongle, and we offered students devices because we had some spare devices. So we actually went and delivered them at home. So we had Chromebooks and we actually drove to the parents' house. And so we do sometimes have to find ways to support the most deprived students who don't have access to computers. Now, thank you very much for your patience with Zoom, because I'm not a very Zoom expert, but if you pin me an email, I will send you what you need. If you want a scheme of work, the Petit Prince scheme of work, I can send that to you as well. So thank you all so much for your time and your patience. Thank you very much, everybody. Adios, adios.